Floppy disks everywhere I look. Ah, so much space is lost. What do we do?
This is the Commodore Amiga, specifically Model 500. Love of my life. And now, although it resembles, to a degree, it resembles a console, and to a degree, it performs like a console. It is a computer at heart, and some of you might be shaking your head, duh, that's a computer. You'd be surprised at how many people are on the internet and have no idea this is a computer. And even more so than the Commodore 64, because the Commodore 64, you boot it up, it goes into basic, you have to type things, alright? This computer, it is theoretically possible to never enter the workbench, the Windows-like environment, it is, or to ever have to enter command, all you have to do is insert the disk. It'll auto-boot most of the time. But despite this, there is an operating system, and it is quite a powerful operating system for 1985 when the original Model 1000 came out. But just like the PC, the Amiga had options. All right, great options considering, for this model, this cheap model, which would have gone for less than $1,000, you could add accelerator cards, memory, hard drives, everything. But basically, I want to show you guys three different ways to install games onto your Amiga. It'll help you if you have the real deal. It'll help you if you have an emulator too, because it's ridiculous how many people are using emulators these days, and they're not using a hard drive for games like Monkey Island or Monkey Island 2. 11 discs on Monkey Island 2, and these people are using just the disc drives. In an emulator, there's no excuse for that. You have to. Nobody goes to DOSBox and uses the floppy disks. Alright? It's even more complicated in DOSBox because you have to have mount commands, you have to mount the hard drives, you have to install it. It's even more complicated than the Amiga, but everybody just, it's like, oh, it's DOS. Of course it's complicated. No. This is an Amiga. It is a computer. It's a easy to use computer, but it's a computer and it can get as complicated as you want it to be. But, it's usually a little less complicated than the PC, and, case in fact, out of my magic bag here. What do you think of this bag? I got it for Christmas. Very good. Very Zelda-ish, I think. Out of the magic bag pops a hard drive. Not only a hard drive, it is an 8 megabyte expansion, giving me a total of 9 megabytes. It cost quite a bit back then, probably just as much as the computer. They were expensive, but it's only $100 nowadays, and it's not exactly cheap, but it's, if you're collecting these things, why not? There's other options too. You can probably get a flash card installed into it, and but this also has the memory, and it's just. And then if you're emulating, it's as simple as going into the WinUAE, mounting the hard drive, and there it is. It's there. And as long as you have, Workbench 1.3 or later, it's going to auto boot. If you have 1.2, it's not going to auto boot, but you can still, put a Workbench disk in there. It'll work. As simple as inserting it into the slot. Makes it look a little big, makes it look a little ugly, especially considering this is yellowing. But it's there, plug and play, simple as that. And I'm going to show you guys a couple ways to install games onto the hard drive on an Amiga. And it's not going to be step by step, it's going to be just off the cuff information. And if you really want to do it, then you can look it up online. Because this is not step by step, I don't run like that. You're all intelligent enough to look this up on your own and get some more details on it. And it'll help you a lot for a lot of games, because a lot of the later games, were hard drive installable. And they came on 12 discs. They had to be. And it'll make everything run so much better if you do it that way. So, I'm going to show you guys a couple ways to do it. Not all games can be installed onto a hard drive, and you know, with the Amiga, that's, you know, very true. At least half the games probably won't be installable, but I'm going to show you how to work with the ones that are.
I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information in case you don't have a hard drive, in case you're working with an emulator, you know, you want to get a hard drive working, or you have the real thing. If you have a real thing, you know, you're going to have, you know, the Workbench 1.2 or 1.3. 1.3 will auto boot the hard drive, 1.2 will not, but you can still have a hard drive. It just won't auto boot. You're just going to have to have a disk to set it up. But here's your, you know, the classic Workbench icon, disk icon, insert a disk. Here I'm going to show you guys, you know, what it takes to install, you know, a game onto a hard drive. So here's the first step. Now, if when you insert a game, it comes to this screen, an Amiga DOS screen, well, that means you have the potential to install it onto your hard drive. Any Amiga DOS game, you know, can work with the operating system in some way. So that is the good news. You have the potential to install. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to do it or that it's easy. The potential is there. If you don't have this screen, if it just goes right into loading the game and you never see this screen, then it's not an Amiga DOS game. It has its own bootloader. So you will never be able to install that onto your hard drive, onto a real hard drive or an emulated real hard drive. Now, if you had the real deal, if you had just installed, if you're working with WinUAE and you just mounted a couple hard drives in WinUAE, you'd put in a Workbench disk and you'd see your hard drives right here, whichever ones you have. And what your main goal would be is to get everything on the Workbench disk onto your primary hard drive. So you would need to install everything. The Workbench, the reason they look so weird is because I'm using, you know, a magic Workbench-like thing. So I have 8 colors for that icon, and it's only showing 4 right now. Classic blue. I love the classic blue. I have it on gray, but just to work with the magic Workbench stuff. I actually like the blue though. Your goal is to get this disk onto this. And also, if you have like a hard drive, a real hard drive, they'd probably give you the disk. You know, that would do it yourself. Mine came with a disk, GVP hard drive disk. You probably look it up online too. It'd probably make it a little easier. GVP hard drive, and yeah, just wait. It'll just put it all on there for you. Now, you can't just, you know, drag and drop. Unfortunately, Workbench 1.3 does not allow you to see all of the icons and all of the files that are on there. So what you'd have to do is you'd open a shell. Don't know it off the top of my head, but it would be something like copy DF0 switch all DH0. It'd be something like that. I don't know the command off the top of my head. This is not a step-by-step guide. This is just to tell you that you guys are smart enough to do it yourself. And you are. This is a computer. Remember, this is a computer. You know, everybody is using mount commands and everything in DOSBox, alright? This is a lot simpler than DOSBox, and you guys really should be using hard drives in this age, you know. So I'm gonna... In 2015, you guys should be using hard drives, honestly, in WinUAE, which is how most of you guys are probably doing this stuff. So I'm going to auto boot into my hard drive. Got the unfortunate gray here, which they went to later on, which is necessary for a magic Workbench, unfortunately. And I had to like hack it in order to get magic Workbench to work in Workbench 1.3. Now, you know, you have other options too. You can have, you know, your best bet is probably to do WHD load, which would, you know, that's the best bet, but you'd have to have a kickstart, you know, 2.0 at least, I think, and that's probably how most people do it online or with WinUAE. But if you wanted to be a little more authentic with WinUAE and use, you know, Workbench 1.3, which is how most of the software, commercial software, would have been compatible with, you know, know, this is what you want to do. Want to do it old school, and I like having a few discs every now and then. You know, having a few discs is good with me. WHD load just gets rid of all the discs. And it's kind of like an emulation within an emulation. It's kind of, I don't like it. I don't like WHD load. It's not personally for me. But you might find that easier if you have WHD. You can just put Kickstart 2.0 in there and install the hard drive, get WHD load, and everything is hunky-dory. Here is my hard drive folder, my games folder, whatever. I got, you know, tons and tons of games on this thing. And you know, these are big games too. These are like 4 to 12 disc games, a lot of them. So you know, we're talking double my collection that you saw earlier if I didn't have these on the hard drive. So this video is not going to deal with getting the games on the disc. Maybe that's for another video, but some other day. This is just if you have the discs, however you obtained them. You know, here's one. This is Fire and Ice. This is not a Amiga DOS game. This is, if you go into Workbench, you insert a disc, it'll say DF0 and DOS. It's not a DOS disc. Or it might come up with a validating error too. And if it does that, you know, you can't install it. Just don't worry about it. It doesn't mean the disc is bad. But let's put some of the discs here. Now, the easiest way this is going to be is some of the later games that would give you the option to install it. So here's Monkey Island 2, which is a 11 disc game. And from the Workbench, you put it in, and here's an install button. So you hit install. This is the easiest way, and this is how a lot of them will be, especially the older ones, the newer ones, I mean. We're going to install all the files to run Monkey Island 2 on your hard disk. Is this what you want to do? And you type yes. Yeah, I want to do that. First we need to know where you want the program. Be sure there's 9 megs free on the hard drive. So please type the name of the disk and enter the directory. So you put in this example, DH0 or DH1. This is what's in the Workbench. You can create a drawer for Monkey Island 2 or place them directly in the above directory. Would you like to place all the files directly into the selected directory? No. So it creates a new directory. And then it starts installing it. And you go through all 11 disks this way as it, you know, goes through its thing. And then you could, you know, launch the game. And once you have it all 11 disks of madness installed, you go to the directory and you launch Monkey Island. So here we have what was Lemon Amiga is voted as the best Amiga game of all time. Somehow this is voted as the best Amiga game. It's not even the best Monkey Island game. It's the best Amiga game too, even though it originated on DOS and has tons of features missing. I don't get it. I don't get it. And it's not running the way it would normally run. I have a PAL motherboard on my Amiga simply for compatibility with all the PAL games. But this would be an NTSC game, and I usually stretch it. I usually have a degrader utility that will put it back into NTSC mode, so it would actually run faster and fill up the entire screen like it should. But I'm not doing that right now. But this is Monkey Island 2, the best Amiga game according to Lemon Amiga. You know, even though it has like virtually no music, and the music it does have is terrible. It runs slow as hell, even on this 9 megabyte thing, but whatever. If you wanted to play this game on the hard drive, which is the only way to play it, then you need to install it on the, you want to install this game on a hard drive, because that's the only way to play it, because otherwise it'd just be way too slow. It's not good. Not good hearing this music this slow either. Yeah, this is how most of you see this game online. This is how you're gonna see it. You're gonna see it in the PAL mode because nobody bothers to switch it to NTSC, which it should be in. Listen to how slow that music is. just for comparison's sake, I just put it in, just rebooted the computer into NTSC mode, and here is Monkey Island 2 the way it's intended to be, just like it is on DOS, you know, in the proper resolutions. It's 4:3 resolution. You know, even though technically I think it's like, it is a wide screen, it's like 320 by 200, which is a wide screen type of resolution, but they always intended it to be shrinked onto a 4:3 display. Which means, like, it's always, even if you get a screenshot of the actual, from the computer itself, you know, it's distorted, it's too wide. So it's always meant to be shrunk onto a 4:3 screen. Unless the PAL game is in full screen, you know, it's not utilizing anything. But you listen to the music. This is the proper speed of the music. And it's fast. You see the overall game is faster. It's just playable now. In PAL mode, it's not even playable on an Amiga 500 because it's too slow. But it is just now playable. It still sounds bad compared to the first game. They did not take their time with the music on this one, unfortunately. They definitely did not take their time because there's barely any music in this game. In this version, there's full soundtrack in the DOS version. There's pretty much no music in this version, other than the main themes and stuff. But you can hear. You compare this to the DOS, you know, it's got the proper tempo. You put this in PAL mode, it's not the proper tempo anymore. It's slow. This is, people, you need to realize this when you're playing games. You know, just because the thing defaults to PAL doesn't mean everything was made for PAL. You know, a lot of the older games were made for NTSC, and a lot of the later games that are hard drive installable are made for NTSC. It's only the budget games that are non-DOS things, you know, those things utilize the extra resolution for PAL. You know, but this is not a game that does that. So you want to play this in NTSC mode, so if you have an emulator, hit the button that says NTSC. Anyway. Now that we've covered the easy way to install a game on your hard drive, the ones that have their own install program, we're going to do the second easiest way. It's not exactly easy, but it's easier than the last method. So here is Battletech, great little RPG, and you insert it, and you have another one. This is Battletech. So here we have an icon. If it has an icon on the workbench, if you put it in a disk and it has an icon, there's a good chance you can install it. Not necessarily true, because a lot of the time these things will have assigns that you can't work with. Sometimes it'll be like looking for a font in the floppy disk, and it's just, I don't know, there's some things maybe you can do it if you have complete know-how. There's some games I can't get to work this way, but most of the games, if it has an icon, can be installed. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. The easiest way for me is if you have a utility like Diskmaster or Directory Opus. I think Diskmaster is free. And this just, it's a very nice utility to see all the files you're working with within Workbench 1.3. So I highly recommend you track this down and get it onto the hard drive. If not, you'd want to do, again, you'd use a CLI command line interface, and you'd copy all the files onto your hard drive. So go to DF0 where Battletech resides. We find where we want to put it, DH1. And first we got to make a directory. For some reason, if I make a directory in Diskmaster, it doesn't make it visible. It doesn't create an icon for it. So we have to go to the end here, duplicate an empty drawer. Yours is not going to look as pretty as mine. I got the Magic Workbench icons here. Create a drawer. I'm going to rename it Battletech. back here. And now we have redid itself. Now we have a BattleTech drawer. So I think the best way for this particular one is to. I don't think it's actually going to use any of this. So I don't think it's going to use that one. Usually you just go to all on the root, but because this has a specific drawer called BattleTech, that's the one I'm going to copy everything from. You go to all, and you copy. It's not going to copy them all onto the hard drive. It's not as simple as that, however, so we're going to let this thing multitask a bit. While we're doing that, we're going to pop open word processor. Workbench does come with a terrible word processor in it, and you can use that to do this too. But I recommend getting Excellence or ProWrite. I got a couple other ones too, depending on my uses. For editing startup files, I usually use Excellence because it's nice and fast, and it saves it correctly. So we have our hard drive. It's still copying files. This is utilizing the Amiga to its full potential here. This is multitasking now. And what you want to do is go into the Workbench directory and go to the S drawer, which is the startup one. Change the pattern to having no idea what it is, and go to Startup Sequence. And we're gonna all these assigns. Basically, an assign is like a mount command in DOSBox. You mount drives or whatever. In the Amiga, you can mount floppy drives. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna assign, and you got to know what it's called. And I think it's going just by BattleTech. It's not going. Usually, it's going by this. It'll be BattleTech version 2.3. In this case, because it has its own drawer within the floppy drive, I think it's just gonna go with BattleTech. But normally this wouldn't be the case. You'd copy whatever the disk is, and sometimes the cracking people will have fun with you and change the name of the disk, and you're never gonna be able to do it. That's one of the big problems with cracking groups, the assholes. So we're gonna assign BattleTech to DH1. BattleTech. I don't know if they're cap sensitive, but just to be sure. And you save that. And make sure you save it in ASCII too, because the computer will not start if it is saved in a document file. It has to be in ASCII too. I think that is set. Quit out of that. We should have everything in there. And we have it there. BattleTech now has the BattleTech icon. We're going to need to restart the computer for that assign to take effect. Back, and we're going to BattleTech. Play BattleTech, hit the icon. Once again, this is right now. It's in PAL mode. It's not an NTSC mode like it should be. This is another game that is designed for NTSC. There's a lot more of them than you guys think. Just because it runs on a PAL Amiga doesn't mean it was designed for it. I think that's part of the reason people think everything was wonderful. Everything's so much better on PAL is because the opposite is not true. A lot of the PAL games will not work on the Amiga. On the NTSC Amigas, but the NTSC games will work on the PAL Amigas, but they won't work how they're intended. So here we have BattleTech, a great little early RPG. Great auto map too. It's like beyond a great auto map. But save. Try to save a game. Yes, it saves. So we have this thing working perfectly good with those assigns, and it pretty much thinks there is a floppy drive with this game on it. Pretty much it's treating it like that, except everything's running faster because it's on from the hard drive. And that's what we have. It's a great way to get a lot of the games that do not have install programs. As long as they have an icon, you can put them on there, and it's not that hard to do that one. I have a lot of games that are like that. So let's go back and do the final method, which is a little more difficult. Now here's the more difficult method. Here's Gateway to the Savage Frontier, a DOSBox game, a later DOSBox game, and it is obviously a DOS game, Amiga DOS game, but you don't see an icon. Now there's two possibilities for that, and one of them is the cracking group, the lovely assholes that they are, decided to delete the install program, probably to save a little bit of space so they could put their bullshit intro onto the stupid disc. You know, that's probably, yeah, that's a lot of the time, that's the reason, unless it's an old game. If it's an old game, it probably won't have an icon. This is a game from like 1990, it should have an icon. I don't know why. I was looking up online, and it's a DOSBox game, and all the DOSBox games had install programs. And according to the reference card, so should this one. So it was either the crack people, or I was also looking up online, and it seems like, even though it's in the technical manual, it's in the reference card, that for whatever reason, the people did not put the install program on this one. They had issues with it. For some reason on the Amiga they had issues with the hard drive program or something, even though all the rest of the DOSBox games, but for the Gateway and Treasures they had some issues with it. So in the event that you have this problem, there's no icon to launch the program, or it's an older game, and you want it on the hard drive, a lot of the older games I wouldn't even recommend to just put it on the disk, because it'll auto boot and it's nicer. But for a game like this, which has 3 discs, you're going to want it on the hard drive. So I'm going to go back to Disk Master. We're going to put them all onto the drive again. First we're going to create an icon, assuming I haven't already done it. Did I already do it? No, I already installed it for you guys. Good for me. I was thinking ahead. But you create an icon. I've already gone ahead and done it for you guys, but again, you go to each disk separately. Into your Gateway folder. You copy them all. Copy everything on there. Copy all the disks on there, and then again you go to word processor. I did not put it, however, into the startup folder. So we're going to assign, and for these, yeah, you just look for. Okay, so it's Gateway A, Gateway B, and be Gateway C. So Gateway B, Gateway A, yeah. So that's what you do. Oops. Gateway A, DH1, DH1, Gateway. Again. Gateway C. Save that. ASCII to. Restart your computer. It should be good to go. Okay, so now we're back from the assigns. We come into the directory, which, again, now we go to Gateway, and there is no, again, there's still no icon. So how do we do it? You have to open up a shell. And I've already conveniently put a shell there just for convenience sake. Open up a shell, CD, DH1, Gateway, directory, and here we have the list, and there's gateway. Right there, we type in gateway, which is the command to start the game. Now that the assigns are in place, game should boot up fine. Again, this is another NTSC game. Anything that works in Amiga DOS, it doesn't matter where it was made, it was designed to be compatible with NTSC, and just like every DOS game, you know, it's supposed to be in 4.3, and right now it's in a very widescreen mode. And that's PAL. It's running slower, and it's running stretched, you know, so everybody, you know, like NTSC really should be like the primary form for a lot of the Amiga games, other than, you know, the non-DOS games. And if I put a non-DOS Amiga game in here, a PAL game, it would fill the entire screen just like NTSC would fill the entire screen. But yeah, if you ever have a game that's really wide on the Amiga, it's never ever designed to be like that. One of the best. This is probably my favorite. Treasures of the Savage Frontier, the sequel, is probably a little better than this one. In terms of gold box games on the Amiga, like, it looks so good. And everything, like, there's great storyline, people join, it's like everything. This is how all the gold box games should have been. It's like this. So those are 3 ways you can install programs on your hard drive. Not too bad. The last one is a little, you know, dealing with the shell, the command line on the Amiga is not, you know, exactly what you want to do, but on certain games you might want to do that, and that's, you know, it's an option. It's an option if you want to deal with it. The easiest way, obviously, the games that come with installed programs, which would be a lot of the later ones. And even if it just has an icon, you know, there's a good chance you can do it. It's not always going to work. Even in all that collection I showed you earlier, there's quite a few Amiga DOS games that just will not go onto the hard drive. Usually because it's looking for the floppy drive and it can't find it. And even if you assign it, it's looking for a sign that's not obvious. You know, if you put in that disk and whatever it puts on as the disk title, that's your best bet. But sometimes it doesn't. Like Discovery. The last game I showed you guys, I tried to put that on the hard drive. Assigned Discovery, and assigning Discovery made it boot, but then the second, you know, it loaded the intro, went to the character select screen, did its few crystal thing, but it wouldn't go to the vocabulary thing, and it said can't find spelling directories or something. It was looking for another assign, and I messed around with it for a little while. I couldn't get it to work. But it's a computer, guys. Like this is what's fun about computers. It's hacking the thing. It's, you know, going into little things. And DOSBox is so much worse. In order to get DOSBox to work properly, it's never correct. You know, you always got to mess with it. And DOSBox is so much more complicated. Yet people expect it from DOS, and they don't care about the Amiga. They just like, oh, it should run. It should just work. So, but yet, yeah. So they deal with the floppies, and then they complain it takes forever to load, and there's 12 disks. There's so much disk swapping. It's like, it's a computer. Just install the thing onto the hard drive. If it has the opportunity, you know, there's more games than you think can be installed that way. So so you guys are aware, you have the potential to do that. Look it up online. It's not that hard to do. I'm just telling you guys, there's a way to do it. You can do it. Phone call.